Hey y'all. So I've been making onion mushroom soup, which is a recipe from Linda at Linda's Pantry for at least a couple years. And my family and my friends love this stuff. But for me to can it all, just enough for everybody, gets crazy. So I decided I wanted to try and make a dry soup mix that tastes like hers. So I've put one together and I'm going to show you what we're doing. And I'm going to give this as gifts to a couple people that just really seem to want it all the time. And in a way, it's a lot easier than the canning. So what I've done, these are mushrooms that I have dehydrated myself. And I've got about 2 cups, and this is give or take. I mean, it's not an exact thing, so there's maybe a little bit more than that. What I've done though is they're very dry, so I've broken them up. Not in tiny pieces, but just so that they're not the whole mushroom slices. So I've got a little over 2 cups of that, and I'm gonna put this, I have a half-gallon jar here with my funnel. Let's see if I can get it where you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to add the mushrooms first. And now what I'm going to do is I need onion. So I have dehydrated onions. And I need about half a cup of that. And again, this is not an exact thing, so just pour that right in there. Get that out of my way. And I need dehydrated garlic, but I have freeze-dried, so I'm going to use that. And it calls for 2 tablespoons, but because this is freeze-dried, I'm going to add a little bit more. Just because freeze-dried is closer to actual size. And besides, who can have too much garlic? Get that out of the way. And then I'm going to add garlic powder. Again, you can't add too much garlic. So I'm going to add, probably 2.5 teaspoons of granulated garlic. Okay. And normally, when you're making her soup, you would add beef bouillon or beef stock. What I've done is I searched everywhere until I found sodium-free beef broth, because I tried making this once and I used regular beef bouillon. Oh my gosh, it was so salty. And if you like it, that's fine. It was too salty for me. So I found this, and I only found it at one grocery store, and I bought everything they had. So they come in these little packets, and I figure these packets are about a half a tablespoon, and I'd like to have 3 or 4 tablespoons of beef bouillon powder. So what I did is I put 2 tablespoons, and then I'm going to take some of the beef bouillon that has the sodium in it, and then I won't add salt. So I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of that. So that's the beef bouillon. And I'm just going to put all that in there. And again, that's about 3 tablespoons. But this is all give or take to taste. So if you like more, you can add as much as you would like, or as little. All right, so we're gonna move those out of the way. And by the way, this and this both are about 35% sodium, very salty. So if you're gonna use these, just be cautious and start with less. And then I need black pepper. So I think we're gonna add, about 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper because we like it. And you can always add more. You can't take it out. I'm not gonna add any salt at this time because I used a little bit of the sodium beef bouillon. And then I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of dried thyme. So my goal is to get this as much like her recipe because we love it. Whoa, that is way too much. So I'm just going to let it go off in there. We want to get this as close to what her soup tastes like as it does when I can it. And then the last ingredient in the dry mix I'm going to add is 3 tablespoons of arrowroot powder. And I've got to use this little jar up because these things are really expensive. But I found this at the restaurant supply, so this is what I'll buy in the future. You can use cornstarch if you prefer. I try not to use it just because it's GMO. Everything corn is GMO. So you can use cornstarch or you can use arrowroot powder, and I just prefer keeping it as clean as possible. So I'm going to do this the other way. I'm right-handed. Doing it that way just doesn't work. Okay, there's 1, 2, and 3. So now we just need to put a lid on it and shake it up. And of course I didn't get that out ahead of time, so that's okay. We can do this. So now I'm just going to mix this all together. And a larger container is going to be easier than a small one because it allows you to mix more thoroughly. So there is my version of dehydrated mushroom onion soup mix, and I can use this with cooking or just in making a soup. And what I'm going to try and do, and I'll make some up for you and show you how it turns out, I plan on adding about 1/4 cup of this mix with a splash of red wine. And splash is up to your definition. And maybe a teaspoon of butter, maybe a little more. And then some hot water. And we're going to see how this comes out. So let's give it a shot. And I forgot to add, this also called for mushroom bouillon. And I have searched high and low, where you can see me. I have searched for that, and I have not been able to find mushroom bouillon. So I thought, okay, how can I get that and add it to my soup mix? What I did is I took my spice grinder and put some of those dried mushrooms in there. And I'm just going to add that to the soup mix also. And I figure about 2 tablespoons of that. You can see it came out as a nice powder. So I'm going to add that in there too. And that's going to give us that really good mushroom flavor in addition to the mushroom pieces. So this made about 4 cups. And depending on what you're using it for, if you use 1/4 to 1/2 cup, that's going to last you a little while. So we're going to make some up. All right, so I've put about 1/4 cup of my mix, and just a little bit of butter, teaspoon, maybe a little more. I just want to give it that rich butter taste. So now what I'm going to do is pour some boiling water. Yep, it's boiling. Now normally if I'm making this, I would probably add the soup to boiling water on the stove and let it cook for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. But for this, we're just going to go ahead and add it and let it just sit for a few minutes. And it'll be chewy because if you were using freeze-dried mushrooms, it would be almost instant. But because I'm using home dehydrated, it's going to take a little bit longer. And I'm going to add just a little more water. So that's probably 1/2 to 3/4 cup of water, probably closer to 1/2. We're just going to let that sit there and rehydrate those mushroom pieces, and having them broken up helps too. Maybe a little bit faster than leaving the whole mushroom pieces. And you can see it's already got that nice thickness. So we're going to let that sit for just a minute. And then we're going to add just a splash of wine. This is Shayna's. I don't have any red wine open, so I'm borrowing hers. So thank you, Shayna. I'm borrowing your wine. She didn't know I was filming. So we're going to let this rehydrate just a little more. And I'm opening the wine so that I can use it and give her some, because she's like, can I please have some of my wine? So, and you just need a little bit for the taste. Here you go, Shayna. Yeah, come say hi. She's camera shy.
Hi, YouTube.
So, okay. So now we've mixed that in, and I'm going to give this a taste. The mushrooms are still going to probably be just a little bit chewy, but we're going to see if the taste is right. So we got mushroom and onion and garlic and all of the seasonings. It's got a lot of that mushroom flavor from that ground up mushroom that I put in there. I think I'd add just a tiny bit more butter. And maybe a little bit less of the beef bouillon. I think it's got plenty for what it is. I don't think it needs this much. So maybe cut down a 1/2 tablespoon to a tablespoon and maybe a little bit less time. But overall, I think this turned out really well, so I'm going to try another taste. I think that's going to be nice to have on the shelf. So when you make something and you can always think about how you can make it differently. I have jars of this on my shelf, but the canned jars take up space. This makes quite a bit more, and I can probably put this, maybe a quart jar, and it's gonna take up a lot less space than 8 or more pints of the canned soup. So just take your ideas and start testing them and working with them to see what you can do. So thanks for coming along with me, and we will meet again soon.